Started new job quickly became favorite, until my manager's secret affair with my sister was exposed, forcing me to choose between protecting family or keeping my career safe in a workplace filled with lies and betrayal I never saw coming. The third day on the job and my boss, Mark, leaned over my desk with that half smile that convinces you that he's already decided you'll like him. "You're learning fast," he said, the voice low enough that only I could hear. I'd been nervous about taking this job, marketing firm, high-profile clients, lots of competition, but his voice put me at ease that I was already among friends. By the end of the first week, he was calling me his go-to for small projects, and people in the office were starting to notice. A couple of them teased me, saying I'd replaced his old favorite. I dismissed it as office gossip, but I got a little flicker of something like maybe I was leaping some invisible line you're supposed to queue up behind before you get that sort of validation. Even so, it was pleasant. Every time he gave me a task, I got this rush, like I was proving all the people who'd ever rejected me. That Friday, we went out for a team lunch. Mark sat opposite me, teasing how I was already running the place. I remember flushing, that mixture of embarrassment and pride. And then he said, as if by the way, "So, what are you doing this weekend?" I said I'd likely be with my sister, Mia, maybe dinner out. He raised an eyebrow and said, "You've never talked about her. How old?" I offered 26, same as me, and he smiled. "She's single?" I rolled my eyes. "Mark, she's way out of your league." He chuckled, the table chuckled, and I didn't give it any mind. Monday morning, I came into the office and spotted Mia in the lobby. My heart skipped. She doesn't work around here. She was lounging on the reception desk, chatting with Mark like they'd known each other for years. I walked in, trying to read the situation. "What are you doing here?" I asked her, and she flashed me this smile she gives when she's keeping something from me. "Just in the area, I thought I'd drop by." She replied like it wasn't a big thing. Mark grinned. "I invited her over to take a look at the building. She's had some design background, yeah?" My mind was retracing all the ways that they might have even been in contact. And then I thought of something. I'd left my phone on the table during lunch on Friday, and Mark had been sitting right there when I brought out my phone and displayed a photo of us. Maybe he just met her online. I brushed it off, reminded myself I was overthinking things. But for weeks following, Mia started, accidentally, bumping into me near the office more and more. Sometimes she'd invite me to meet her for coffee, and she'd already be seated there laughing at something Mark had said. I wanted to ask how they even ended up together, but part of me didn't want to know. At work, Mark's attention to me did not change, but occasionally he'd toss in an aside comment. What Mia liked, what she hated, whether she had a boyfriend. I kept it light, told him that she was complicated, but on the inside, this tightness was growing. I wasn't even sure whether it was out of sisterly protectiveness or whether I just didn't want work penetrating to my family time. Then one Thursday evening, Mia called me, her voice all cheery. "Don't freak out," she said, which is exactly how you get someone to freak out. "Mark and I are having dinner tomorrow. It's just casual." I sat in my apartment, staring at the wall. I had no clue how to respond. "Mia, he's my boss," I responded slowly, like she hadn't understood that. She merely laughed. "Chill, I'm not seeking a relationship. He's entertaining." I barely slept at all that night. The next day at work, Mark said nothing about it. He acted like I was a normal person, handed me over a new client proposal, made a joke about my coffee addiction. That made it darn near worse. Like he was just pretending like there wasn't this entire other conversation between us without words. A week later, I found out through Mia, not him, that they'd been dating more than I was aware. "It's not serious," she said, but there was this little spark of light in her eyes. I knew that look. She liked him. I tried to make excuses it wasn't my problem, but whenever Mark complimented me in a meeting, I felt that shift in the room. Like the others were wondering if I was worthy or if it was just attached. I hated the thought. And then came the experience that blew it wide open. It was Wednesday afternoon, and I'd stayed late to finish a report. The office was deserted, the whir of the copier, me, and Mark in his glass office. I glanced up, and there he was on the phone, leaning back in his chair with that same smirk he'd sported when he first met me. His mouth moved, and I heard it, Mia's name. He laughed, a deep, easy one, and said something I couldn't quite catch, but his tone. It was the kind of tone you use when you're not exactly being courteous. I sat there, frozen, my eyes fixed on my monitor, questioning whether I should leave or just pretend that I hadn't heard. I attempted to talk myself into perhaps it was nothing, perhaps I was being paranoid, but deep down inside I knew it was something, and in that moment I realized I was on the precipice of something that might ruin either my job or my relationship with my sister, or both. That night I couldn't shake it. I slept with the phone cradled against my chest, deciding whether to call Mia or forget about it. The rational part of me kept insisting, It's her life, back off. But the part that had watched my career take root here, that part was screaming. I couldn't help but think of the way the office had started staring at me when Mark assigned me work. It was tiny, like a flicker in their eyes, but I could catch it every time. And if they were to ever find out he was seeing my sister, they would make assumptions that weren't there at all. But that wouldn't be the issue. Perception will kill you faster than reality. I woke up the next morning and came into work with this manufactured calm on my face, doing my best to act like everything was okay. Mark waved at me from his office, and I smiled. At lunchtime, Mia messaged me, "Dinner again tonight. Don't wait up." I read those words for a minute before typing. "Be careful," she answered with a laughing emoji and nothing else. I lost my appetite. At 3, one of the coworkers, Jenna, leaned over the divider and whispered, "You've got quite the fan club." I looked up, confused, and she nodded her head in the direction of Mark's office. "He stared at you for like 5 minutes. I dismissed it, but my stomach twisted. That evening I almost called Mia and recounted it all. How this was not just awkward, it was dangerous. But I didn't. Half of me knew she'd just brush it aside again, and the other half, maybe I didn't want to listen to her explain it away. 2 weeks went by like that. Small comments from coworkers, late texts from Mia that she was with him, and Mark, still acting like everything was fine at the office. And then one Friday, the whole office went out for drinks to celebrate having gotten a big client. I wasn't in the mood, but not going would have been suspicious. We were at this jammed bar, giggling people, too loud music. Mark was standing beside me at the bar, close enough for me to smell his cologne. "You've been quiet these past few weeks," he told me. I smiled at him quickly and told him I'd just been concentrating on work. He leaned toward me a little, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Your sister's incredible, you know that?" I clenched my hand around my drink. I didn't respond. He laughed it off, but I caught something in his tone. Pride, maybe possession, that made me's chest tighten. I left early that night, told him I had an early morning. The next day Mia just showed up unannounced. She looked different, bouncier, but also distracted. We sat on the couch, and she kept glancing at her phone. "Okay," I said after some time. "What's up?" Her eyes sparkled, nearly demurely. "Mark is inviting me to go with him for the weekend." "Just the weekend?" I stared at her. "You've known him 6 weeks? Mia, that's madness." She frowned, hurt. "It's only a weekend. You're making such a big deal about this." I took slow breaths. "It is a big deal. He's my boss. This is already pushing boundaries. If it gets out, it's not just your company, it will ruin mine." She scowled. "So you're saying I can't date anyone because of what you do?" "I'm saying maybe think about the fallout before leaping in." She stood and grabbed her bag. "You always do this. Try to control everything. Maybe you're jealous he likes me better than you." That was a verbal slap, even though I knew she didn't mean it. Still, she stormed out before I could say anything. The week before their vacation, things were strained at work. I was quiet, evaded chatting. But Mark didn't seem to mind, or maybe he didn't notice. And then I walked into the break room on Wednesday afternoon, grabbed coffee, and froze. 2 of my coworkers were at the counter, whispering, and I heard my sister mentioned. "They didn't see me." "I'm saying, that's his girlfriend," one of them said. The other laughed. "Yeah, and his employee's sister." Sorted. My heart started pounding. I walked in like I hadn't heard anything, but my hands were shaking so bad I almost spilled the coffee. That night I called Mia. "People at work are talking," I said flatly. She sighed. "So, let them talk." "No, you don't get it. Undefined, this could actually hurt me." "Undefined if they think I'm getting special treatment, are you?" "Undefined." She cut in. "Undefined." I swallowed hard. "Undefined, no undefined, but that's not the point. Perception is everything." There was a long pause, then she said, "I can't just stop seeing him because you're worried about office gossip." "It's not gossip, it's good night, sis," she said, and hung up. Undefined. I sat there with the phone in my hand, feeling like the ground under me was starting to crack. Friday of our trip out, I rolled into the office with every intention of just keeping my head down and pushing through the day. I'd already determined I wasn't going to ask Mia what they were doing and where they were going because I wasn't sure I was prepared to hear the answer. But around 11, Mark called me into his office. He was rolling up a laptop bag, grinning like he just won the lottery. "Got that Johnson account proposal ready?" he asked casually, as if we both understood that he'd be away with my sister in a few hours. I handed it to him mutely, and he glanced up. "Hi, don't work too hard this weekend." I smiled tightly, but there was something wriggling under my skin in me. The rest of the day crawled along. Friday people were boisterous and chatty, but I heard hardly any of them. When 5 finally got there, I shot out, didn't even make the elevator wait. I came home, set my phone face down, and tried to distract myself with laundry, TV, anything. But at 9, my phone lit up with a picture of Mia, her and Mark at some fancy restaurant, wine glasses in hand, her leaning into him like they'd known each other for years. No caption, just the picture. I stared at it for hours wondering if she'd sent it to make a point, or if she simply didn't care about how I'd feel. By Sunday night, I'd rationalized I could ride this out, keep family and work separate, pretend. But that Monday morning shot that to pieces. I went to the office and immediately sensed something was amiss. Conversations hit whisper mode when I walked by. No one was making eye contact. In the break room, Jenna gave me that sad look and then whispered, "Just so you know, someone did see Mark and your sister this weekend. Like actually see them. At the hotel." My mouth felt dry. "Who?" I demanded of her, but she shook her head. "Doesn't matter. It's people who talk." I nodded like I understood, yet my heart was racing so fast I couldn't hear her. All the way through morning, I walked in dense fog. With each thing Mark told me, I was wondering who was watching, who was thinking. At lunchtime, I sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria, scrolling my phone just so I didn't have to look at anyone. That's when Mia called. "Hi," she said with a smile. "How's work?" I wanted to answer. "Work is a disaster because of you," but all that could get out was, "Fine." She laughed. "Mark says hi." Something within me broke. "Mia, you need to get a grip. People here are gossiping. It's not funny anymore." She didn't say anything for a moment before she said, "You sound jealous." My jaw clenched. "This has nothing to do with jealousy. This is my work, my reputation." "Well," she said begrudgingly, "if your boss can't keep it professional, that's his fault, not mine." I hung up. I couldn't even listen anymore. That afternoon, Mark called me into his office again. He closed the door, sat down, and said, "I heard some talk today, assuming people." I shot him a glare, hoping he would do the honorable thing, but he leaned in instead. "I want you to know, it doesn't matter. I appreciate you for what you do. That's all anyone needs to know." My mouth went dry. "Mark, it can't be that simple. People already assume." He waved his hand. "Don't worry about it." And he smiled like the conversation was over. I walked away with the feeling that I just had my head patted and told to sit down. The rest of the week was a blur of awkward exchanges, whispered overheard conversation, and me questioning every interaction. Thursday, I got an email from HR, a generic reminder about professional conduct and workplace relationships, to the entire office. My stomach hit the floor anyway. Was this about us? About him and Mia? I phoned her later that night. "This has to end," I said before she even had a chance to greet me. "You're intruding into my life, Mia. You don't know it, but you are," she sighed. "I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm not doing anything I'm not supposed to be doing. I like him. He likes me. That's all." "You're not hearing me," I said, my voice shaking. "If this keeps on, I might lose my job. Do you care?" There was a pause. Then she replied, "I think you're being unfair," and hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, a dawning, heavy sensation spreading over me. That's when I realized she wasn't going to back down, and Mark wasn't going to care about the repercussions as long as he was winning, which meant if anyone was going to rescue me, it had to be me. By Friday morning, I had made my decision. I didn't have the luxury of waiting for them to sort themselves out on their own. My career here was too valuable, and if that meant being the bad guy in my sister's book for a bit, I'd do it. I got to the office before the mass of people awoke and sat at my desk watching over a blank version of an email to HR. I kept typing and deleting as I struggled to find a means of explaining the situation without it sounding like I was throwing people under the bus. Each draft felt sloppy. I did not want to open a formal investigation. I simply wanted that cloud that hung over me to lift. At precisely 9, Mark arrived, coffee in hand, wearing that same smile he always wore, like nothing was amiss. I observed him head to his office, and I knew I wasn't prepared to go through HR just yet. Not because I was afraid of him, but because once that ball started rolling, it would roll over everything in its path, including my relationship with Mia. So I attempted another approach. I texted her at lunch, "We need to talk, tonight." She just gave me a thumbs-up response. We sat down at the little diner near my apartment building, the one that we'd gone to after school when everything seemed so much simpler. She had already sat there when I arrived, scrolling through her phone. I sat down opposite her, and for a while neither of us spoke. Finally I said, "Mia, I'm asking you one last time. Please break up with Mark." She rolled her eyes. "We've been through this. You don't control who I date." I leaned forward, speaking very softly. "This isn't about control. This is about staying alive." I can feel the manner in which the individuals at the workplace now glance at me. They feel that I'm here because of you, or him, and not because of deserving it. Do you have an idea what this does to somebody who has been working there but off to go ahead? She did not answer back right away. Her fingers tapped against her coffee mug. "It's not like he's bragging about it," she said after some time. I nearly laughed. "He's not hiding it either. Folks have seen the two of you at the hotel. News is spreading. I've worked too hard to have this be my headline." She exhaled quietly. "You really think that it will kill your career?" I swallowed hard. "I know it will, And if that does happen, I won't lose just my job, I'll lose respect I've fought years to establish. She sat back, a shift in her expression, something flickering in her eyes between stubbornness and shame. I didn't think of it like that, she agreed. I just thought, we were having fun, and maybe you were, I said to her, but I'm drowning in the fallout. The silence between us was long until at last she said, okay, I'll talk to him. I wouldn't give myself permission to feel relieved yet. I'd see it to believe it. The next few days in the office were tense but quiet. Mark hardly talked to me beyond what was necessary, which was quite a relief. Then, midweek, he called me into his office. He closed the door and leaned back in the chair. So, your sister and I had a conversation, he said. My heart pounded harder. She told me she wants to break up. He went on, his voice steady but his gaze narrowed, as if daring me to respond. I didn't flinch. I respect that, I answered in an even tone. He looked at me for a long time, then nodded. I just want you to know that I've always valued you here. That'll be the same. I nodded slightly and left him before he could say anything more. For the first time in weeks, I was able to breathe at my desk without wondering what people were saying. That Friday, Mia came over. She looked tired, as if she'd run it all around her brain. I broke up with him, she said flatly. I nodded. Thanks. She pushed into the couch, hugging a pillow to her chest. He wasn't happy about it though. But I see now how it might have destroyed things for you. I didn't know then. I sat down next to her, and we didn't talk for a few minutes. The TV buzzed in the background, the silence easy in a way it hadn't been in years. I knew she was still tender, and maybe she felt I had been excessive, but at least we were not on opposite sides anymore. The weeks that ensued saw the office slowly return to its normal state. The side glances ceased. The whispers stopped. Mark remained my boss, but now there was a gap between us that I was relieved for. I threw myself into my work, striving to make my performance do more than the gossip had. Sometimes I caught myself wondering what would have happened if I hadn't spoken up, if Mia kept dating him and the gossip went further. Sorry, I think I know what it is, and I don't want to have it live with me. Sorry now, weeks later, I don't think about it daily anymore, but occasionally, as I walk over to my desk with my coffee, I'll glance over at Mark's office and see him sitting there, and I'll think about how close I'd come to losing everything I'd accomplished. So in those moments, I'll tell myself that it isn't selfish to protect your future, it's necessary. No matter how difficult or painful the choices might be, even if they hurt in the short term.